So the sheet that you have in front of you is your final assessment on vectors. Okay, we've been doing vectors since the second day of the semester, so it's kind of time to move on. Okay? If it's something you're still struggling with, then please come in and see me for help. Okay, because, well, to put it mildly, the rest of the course kind of depends on your ability to do these. So, okay, if it's something you're struggling with, then you got to come in and see me. Okay, do some more practice problems, things like that. All right, so I'm going to give you some tips and some hints for this assignment. Some of them will be question specific. Okay, the first thing is general. Sig digs. Make sure your answer has the right number of them. It does affect the mark. Okay, so make sure that your final answer has the right number of significant digits, and that it, has a vector. Since, well, it's kind of the whole point of the assignment. Okay? Should probably have vectors on the vast majority of the answers, okay, in this assignment. Now, on the note of vectors and significant digits, remember, this is something we only kind of touched on, but when you're figuring out what your significant digits are, only numbers that are used to calculate something affect your significant digits. So, it is possible for you to have a magnitude that has one number of significant digits and a vector that has a different number of significant digits. Okay? Like, for example, if the vectors were collinear, that is, they share the same vector, do you ever do anything with the vector? Do you use it to calculate anything if they're collinear? You don't. Right? It's never a factor. Like maybe in question number 1, where you have two vectors whose magnitudes have 3 significant digits and whose vector only has 2, and the two things are never combined mathematically. Right? It's a very rare circumstance. Like, that's the only time I've ever seen it happen. That's why I'm pointing it out. Okay? So, when you're looking at question number 1, don't overthink it. It's 2 lines pointing the same direction. Okay? Because people really overthink this one. It's 2 lines pointing the same way. Okay? So don't overthink it. It's only out of 3 marks. Incidentally, that's the number of marks for each question. Okay? So the little number in brackets at the end of the question, that's what it's out of. Okay? Number 2, okay, is we haven't talked about forces yet, but remember, all vector quantities are added by drawing them. Yes, tail to head, that thing, okay? What happens with number 2 is people visualize this and they go, here's the box and it's being pulled this way and this way, whichever way it is, okay? And then they do something weird with these vectors instead of drawing them the way they're supposed to be drawn, which is tail to head, okay? So tail to head, that's your hint for number 2. All right, number 3. So you got 2 vectors there, okay? It's very much like what you would see on your unit exam, 5-mark question, draw them tail to head, do your thing, X and Y and all that, okay? For question number 4 is just asking you for the X and Y components. So it's giving you one vector and asking you to calculate X, asking you to calculate Y. That's it, don't overthink it, okay? The thing that people mess up on this question is the vector, right? Look at the vector that the question gives you and make sure the vectors you put on X and Y match it. This one is asking about an XY scatter plot. Okay, not compass directions. Number 5, by comparison, is very similar to number 4, except it does give you compass directions, so compass directions on your x and y components. All right, number 6, you've got just a simple vector addition question, okay, like the ones we've been working on in class. So draw your tail to head, find your x's and y's, okay, find your resultants, okay, but watch this part. It specifies what your reference direction is for your final answer. So it should be something of east. Okay? Okay, number 7 is 3 vectors. One is horizontal, one is vertical, one is angled. Okay, so even though it sounds like it's a ton of work, remember that 2 of the vectors you don't have to find x's and y's for. Okay, so it's just a vector addition question, tail to head, okay, solve. It's actually a lot like the first one we ever did with the person going from the tent to the lake, like that. Okay. For number 8, this is 2 vectors that are angled, so like one of the ones on the quiz, the second one on the quiz yesterday, it's very much like that. Tail to head, find your x's and y's, find your resultants. 9 and 10 are boat questions. Okay, make sure you identify if they are going across or rowing across. Yeah, so make sure you identify whether it is a rowing across or going across question. Okay, they may be both going across, they may be both rowing across, they could be different. Okay, that's up to you to decide. But they're just like the boat questions we looked at the other day. Okay, that's it. Those 10 questions. You have all of class today to work on it. Okay, I'll see if we can eke out any time anywhere else to work on it, but I don't know if we will. Okay, I'll decide on a due date here in a couple of minutes, and I'll put it up. Okay, so due date, September 22nd, that's Thursday of next week. Okay, so that gives you lots of time to work on it. Come in and see me if you need help with questions or anything like that. If you got questions today, guys, I'll be circulating. Just don't be afraid to ask.